Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on how AI solutions can drive business growth and productivity. My name is Wilhelmina Diveston, and I work at the National AI Centre. For today's session, I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous people of our country. Our department recognises the first people of this nation and their ongoing cultural and spiritual connections to the lands, waters, seas, skies, and communities. We acknowledge the First Nations people as the traditional custodians and law keepers of the oldest living culture and pay our respects to their elders past, present. We extend this respect to all First Nations people. And I'm joining you from Gadigal land. So welcome everybody. Firstly, I'd just like to talk a little bit about National AI Centre. Before I introduce our speakers, I'll also do a demo of the new AI adoption tracker. So National AI Centre, our vision is a prosperous and productive AI-powered future that improves the lives of Australians. And our mission is to unlock the positive potential of AI by supporting industry to secure AI opportunities and to grow economic productivity and build capability, clarity, and confidence. Our organisation is sort of divided up into sort of three strategic objectives: to grow confidence, to unlock capability, and to deliver clarity. So we really want to promote Australia's AI opportunity, educate Australia, and reward on both the rewards and the risks of AI, and develop and support communities around AI innovators. We also want to improve Australia's AI literacy and make responsible AI practices achievable and fit for purpose. And last but not least, we want to become the trusted home of information, guidance, and insights about Australia's AI industry. But firstly, let me just share you a little bit about this AI adoption tracker that we built, and a little bit of history. In early 2024, we wanted to be able to measure and understand small, medium businesses' adoption and perception of AI. And we actually went out to Steve Nuttall's team, who's on this webinar, who are already doing a small, medium enterprise monthly pulse. And what we did was we added 5 or 6 questions to this pulse and started this in May 2024. And as a result of this monthly data, we get this data every month, we built the adoption tracker, which is sort of a Power BI-based interactive set of dashboards. And we've got 5 dashboards, namely on level of AI adoption, awareness, and also what business outcomes businesses are getting, and the benefits and challenges. And we've just launched this morning the Responsible AI Practices dashboard. So I'm just going to quickly go through that. It's important to understand how we're measuring adoption, and this is a detailed slide, and apologies for that, but we look at adoption in sort of 4 levels. One, that small, medium enterprises are using this broadly across their business, that they'll use it in limited parts of their business, they're in the process of implementing it, or they're actually planning to adopt AI solutions in the next 12 months. And then we have the category of they're not planning to implement, and then people that are not aware of how to use AI in their business. So that's just a bit of context setting. But what we have done is actually you're able to actually look at these segments in lots of detail. You can look at it by size of business. You can look at it by region versus capital cities. You can look at it by industry. There's all sorts of metrics. There's also a dashboard on what applications businesses are using, and currently the top 5 applications are GenAI assistance, no surprise to that, but also data entry and document processing. Those 2 are the top 2 at the moment. And then fraud detection, marketing automation, and predictive analytics are the sort of next ones in line. If we look at the business outcomes, we're also measuring that in detail, because it's important to understand not just the use of AI, but are they getting value for their business? So the top 3 business outcomes are faster access to accurate data for decision making, enhance engagement and response to marketing activities. And third one, and importantly, is enhance resource optimization and productivity. Dashboard asks people about how they're using AI responsibly, and these 3 are the top 3 things that SMEs are doing. They're checking AI results before they affect their customers. They're reviewing their system outputs for accuracy, and they're also committed to using best practice guidelines for safe and responsible AI. So I might just stop sharing this, and then I'm going to share the AI adoption tracker homepage of the AI adoption tracker, and we'll share this URL in the Q&A section. Oh, by the way, if you have questions, please put it into the Q&A section of the platform. Anyway, here is the adoption tracker, and we've got these 5 dashboards. One is on AI adoption, one's the applications, which I talked about. The third one is business outcomes, and the fourth one is challenges and benefits, and the last one is responsible AI. So I'm just going to show you 2 dashboards, and I encourage you all to explore this data. It's in this interactive Power BI based system, so you can look at data. You can look up, what people are doing in Tasmania or small businesses in Queensland, etc. So I'm just loading up the dashboard now, and one of the things I do recommend is when you're really drilling down into the business sizes and the industry especially, it's good to look at a quarterly view. But this is sort of the quarterly view of how people are adopting AI. So the purple's the broad, the red is limited use, the black is in the process, and the blue is intend to implement. So that's the segment that I just talked about. But you can also drill down into specific industries. You can look at locations, etc. So I'll just bring up, there's 5 dashboards, and Beth is going to share some of those in the chat, but I just wanted to show the responsible AI data. So in February this year, we added some questions. We wanted to align it to the voluntary AI safety standard, but we used language that was very understandable by businesses. So we asked people what they were using or what they were planning to use with responsible AI practices. And you'll see the dashboard. This goes from February this year. And this view is about what they're planning to use. You can also look at what people are using. So currently people that are using AI applications, the top 3, as I discussed, are checking results, reviewing for accuracy, and then following guidelines. So that's the tracker, and what we've done is enabled that so you can explore this data in any way you like. The data is live. And I'm just going to bring my presentation up again. Apologies, it's taking a little while. Yeah. Anyway, wanted to just share the adoption tracker, and hopefully you can all explore that in your own time. But now it's time to introduce our panelists, and looking forward to having great discussions with Dr. Steve Nuttall, Corey Stewart, and Ben Finkel. Wondering if, Steve, maybe you can start by introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about your organisation and your perceptions of business adoption.
Thanks so much, Wilhelmina. So I'm Steve. I'm one of the directors here at Fifth Quadrant. We're a market research consultancy based in North Sydney, and we specialise in strategic insights. In this instance, as Wilhelmina says, we've been conducting this AI adoption research now for over 12 months and built up a really good portfolio of data, which I'm grateful for the way in which that's now being presented into this dashboard and making this data accessible to everybody. We're adopting AI in our business. We use it, for example, we use AI to probe on open-ended questions in surveys. We use it to create dashboards. We use it for data visualization. We're starting to develop various business management tools with AI. So we're very active and enthusiastic, if not evangelical, about the use of AI. We understand the trends that we're seeing through the tracker, and we understand the practical realities of implementing AI in a small business. So that's a bit about us. 12 months gives you a decent perspective, I think, in terms of what we're seeing in change in the pattern of AI adoption. I think one of the things we saw 12 months ago was a real gap between regional and metro, and that gap's starting to close. But I think the thing that concerns me still is that there's still a very kind of large cohort of businesses that don't intend to adopt AI. So I think kind of, understanding what the fears, what are the concerns there, what are holding businesses back is important there as well, because I still think we've got some way to go. So anyway, that's enough about me and us. Wilhelmina, I know we're going to talk a bit more about this as we dive into it.
Yeah, certainly. And hi, Corey. Can you introduce yourself and a little bit about your business, please?
Yeah, no worries. Hi, I'm Corey Stewart. I'm the founder and CEO of ArmHub. ArmHub is here to build the industrial capability of Australia. We're not for profit, but we work across the country, and we've got our kind of headquarters and facility in Brisbane. And then people around the country. So ArmHub really is one of the AI Adopt centres that supported by the government. We really are looking at the industrial tech applications. So in the last year, we really have reached out to, over 30,000 people, talking about what it looks like in the industrial context, which is a lot of AI and also OT, so operational technology in the field. And we've got hundreds of clients really looking at that transitions phase. But we have seen, I think, a whole range of companies in the SME cohort of the keen to adopt, really understand the environment. And we have to remember that manufacturers in particular are often the quickest adopters of tech in terms of how they think about technology, but at the same time can be a slower integration. So I'm really looking forward to talking a little bit about what we're seeing, and also want to say what, for me, and our sector, and looking at the tracker, this is going to be an incredibly useful tool, and particularly over time. So we're already starting to see in a year some of the trends that make us ask really interesting questions of, is this what we're seeing? Is this also what the community is reporting back to us about what they value and what they don't value, or how they're using AI? And at the moment, there's a real distinction between what the tracker's saying and what we're seeing. So I think that over time, let's see how this evolves. And I think having that data point is incredibly useful, and it will be increasingly useful over time. So look forward to chatting a little bit more after this.
Thanks, Corey. So Ben, what about an introduction and a bit about ARAIN?
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy to be here. I'm Ben Finkel, and part of the leadership team at the Australian Regional AI Network, or ARAIN. We're a national initiative focused on helping regional and rural SMEs adopt AI in a way that's safe, effective, and most importantly, practical. At ARAIN, we work directly with producers, ag advisors, fishery operators, renewable businesses, and regional producers, and our approach isn't about just pushing tech for its own sake. We help businesses understand how AI fits into their existing operations and where it can actually unlock the value. And that often comes through going out and meeting them where they are. And so we use tools like custom GPTs and partner with regional councils, RDCs, and and run workshops. We develop demos and ultimately co-design practical use cases that make sense in the real world.
That's fantastic. I think the adopt centres are really, on the ground, engaging with particular sectors and helping small businesses and medium-sized businesses along their AI adoption journey, and really looking at what the business opportunity is, not just the AI opportunity. So I love that angle, Ben. For everybody, I wanted to just ask a quick question about what do you think is the most common misconception among businesses about AI adoption, implementing AI. Does anyone want to comment?
Happy to start. It's I guess there's probably three misconceptions that we see often, and that is that in our region specifically, AI is for big business, and many SMEs assume that, and it's something only large corporates can afford to implement. And in reality, tools like GPTs can really be deployed affordably and at small scale, and deliver really meaningful returns by reducing ultimately the admin load that a lot of the SMEs are experiencing, and that will effectively speed up the decisions that they need to make. That's probably the biggest one. The second, I guess, from our standpoint, is that we often hear people say, I need structured data to start. And some believe that you can't use AI unless your data is clean, tagged, and in the perfect shape. And the opposite is actually very true. So, large language models excel at working with unstructured data like PDFs, meeting notes, emails, even voice memos. So that's a huge win for regional businesses where data is often messy and but really actually very meaningful.
Yeah, I do love that we can, access unstructured data more effectively and don't have to wait for the pure. I think 10 years ago, everyone talked about creating this central pure data lake of information, but no, it is a fantastic opportunity and a misconception. Corey or Steve, any comments? Corey?
I do. I agree. It is a great tool with generative AI in particular that can help you clean and get your data ready for use in AI. But I think it's still a really important part to understand that really knowing where your data is and having some trust in what your data is still a fundamental requirement of thinking about what you're going to get at the other end. So there's some processes, but it shouldn't, like Ben is saying, it shouldn't be a barrier that it once was, thinking you had to have entirely clean data. From our point of view and our discussions often with the industrial side is that a lot of our conversations begin with automation still. So, a robot that welds faster, or a vision model that spots defects, or, a script that posts invoices or something to the ERP system overnight. And these gains really matter, but I think of them as kind of incremental gains, but not particularly transformative gains. And I think you can look at both of these opportunities. So I think of them as kind of automation opportunities versus transformation opportunities. And I think the transformation opportunities should really be part of a discussion. Sorry, someone calling me, as part of a discussion about how you get to new markets, how you reshape the culture in your business as well, and how you really build a data-driven resilience into a global supply chain. These are all important conversations to have around AI because it's all accessible now. So we should really be thinking about the structure of the businesses and the business's goals and taking advantage of how AI can get you there faster than what you might have thought before.
Yes, I love that. There are some, automation things that can help you be more productive, but then really looking at how can you transform your business and actually make it more impactful. That those two comparisons are amazing.
And I will just make a distinction because I might not get to make it again. I think it's an important one. I just think automation is usually about additional tools to your systems and processes, whereas transformation, you're really starting to think about, rewiring how people work, how processes happen, and really adding how data interacts to create value. So they're the different ways of thinking about it, and it's particularly evident in the industrial sector because we always think about automation as a set of new tools that does an additional thing, often a new part of the stack, but AI is really allowing us to think about transformation, like really rewiring how we think about value, because often there is a faster, better, easier route to creating that value that's now available to companies. And as Ben was saying, it's structured data, like things that like your finance systems and your ERP systems and your CRMs and whatever you need, but it's also the unstructured data like your PDFs and your videos and your meeting calls, and all of this can now come together to be a brain for your company in the way that it's never been able to be before. So
and the granularity.
And it's accessible.
The granularity. Yeah. So you were talking about automation and processes, but it's really now looking at specific workflows. So it's the opportunity for businesses to pause and look at an individual workflow and where there's complementary addition for AI rather than plugging AI in, but really acknowledging what your workflow load looks like and finding the piece where AI can fit and then bringing that in to support that workflow at speed. So yeah, we've got an opportunity to build our own operating system now. That's the way we see it. You've got access to your memory, which is more than just your ERPs and CRMs that we spoke about, but it's also your tribal knowledge. And it's we're getting closer to that nirvana that I think many ERPs and CRMs were selling to us over the last 20 years.
Yeah, it's true. Steve, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, look, I think there's a concern that comes through the data, which is that we lack the skills, the technical expertise, we haven't got the infrastructure, we can't afford the infrastructure investment. And that seems to be one of the big challenges holding back non-adopters. I think 60% of non-aware businesses say that they lack the skills. And I think that, the most common applications around, things like data entry application and GenAI assistance are really accessible and incredibly affordable. And if you started using some of the vibe coding tools now that are available, you don't need to be a software engineer. You just talk through in natural language the spec that you want for a software solution, and it builds it for you and it iterates it with you. I'll take you through some examples of what we've been building, and I'm a non-technical person. I know a bit about coding, but you don't need to hire a whole team of coders. The cost of building these applications to create a proof of concept or have a really good prototype, it costs you under $100. So I think that misconception, skills and investment, that's one I think that's really important to address. I think the other, when I speak at conferences, the big question I often get is that AI is going to replace our staff entirely. And we're kind of seeing that it's using AI to eliminate repetitive tasks, to get your staff to focus on real high value work. We've not replaced anybody. Our analysts are they're more productive. They're freed up to do more deeper strategic thinking. So I think that's another kind of misconception, and that comes through in the data as well, that the non-adopters do say that we don't really have our staff on board here with this project, whereas the AI adopters, their staff are all behind this, they're supportive, etc. It's real chalk and cheese in terms of how that comes through in the data.
Yeah, it's very true. It's the augmentation of AI into an organization rather than a replacement. And I think we're starting to see more and more anecdotes and real use case to support that. So I agree with you from a misconception perspective. It's not really here to replace people.
Yeah, and you think about the immediate advantages as a business in terms of onboarding staff, like as a really just a good basic example. If you have good access to your data in your business, it will help train the new person up and what your business does, how it operates, where it goes. They have immediate access to this kind of information, where once, that was go and talk to so-and-so, do a bit of training with the next person, go and visit new sites. Now, you still might do some of that, but you actually have your staff are more empowered to be more effective and engaged, informed staff immediately. I find, like, as a person who runs a small to medium business with, nearly 30 staff, the borderline between being able to be available to everyone, but also needing some automation and some capability where people can do independent thinking. Not everybody has to stop and down tool every time someone needs something. These are just what are becoming essential basic tools that AI can deliver for everybody across the business. So, and I think there's about a handful of those which are just no-brainers, and really, quite accessible to implement and have available. And they're a really good starting place for a lot of businesses that haven't implemented tools before like this.
Yeah, and I think your point there, Corey, is to kind of start small. I think the other misconception is you've got to get AI to do everything all at once, and no, just start. Build confidence, expand gradually to begin with. If you're new to using AI in your business.
Mm.
Yeah, look, and on that note, I think it might be a good time to start exploring some use cases. And Steve, I thought it'd be a really nice time for you to talk about your voice AI agent at this stage.
Yeah, I'm very bravely going to call a conversational AI agent shortly that my tech partner called .ai has built for us, and they built this last week for this webinar. So we'll see how she goes in a minute. She's been trained as an advisor from the Small Business AI Advisory Service, and I'm going to play the role of a market research director seeking advice on AI implementation. The reason for kind of showing you that is that it's going to demonstrate, how when we talk about conversational AI and chatbots in the data, I'm going to try and sort of bring this to life to see how, what we mean by conversational AI. And you'll hear things like natural conversation flow and context awareness and handling, some complex business discussions. But I think what we're seeing in terms of how this actually, what it delivers, what voice AI agents can deliver in terms of productivity, that huge opportunities around admin task automation, staff productivity multipliers and operational efficiency gains. But for me, it's about, I think, probably more about the growth benefits for your business when you've got an agent who's available 24/7, round the clock, instant response times, handling inquiries from prospective customers, taking the insight from the conversation and then being able to do intelligent lead scoring. These agents, they can do appointment scheduling, they can integrate into other systems, so they can take payments if necessary. And what's interesting is that compared with a human agent is that you can scale without huge cost increases. And you can scale rapidly. And so, so sometimes the applications that we're seeing is that we get a huge volume spike in our call center, which we completely overwhelmed, customers on hold for hours and hours. These agents are great at handling those volume spikes, and they expand in a really consistent way, and they can speak different languages. So, for me, I think there's some kind of productivity benefits, but for me, it's all about growth. So, look, without further ado, I'm going to get Neve on the call. Hello.
Hi there, this is Neve from the Small Business AI Advisory Service. We're here to help Australian small and medium-sized businesses get started and get the most out of the AI. Who am I speaking to?
Steve.
Nice to meet you, Steve. The Small Business AI Advisory Service helps Aussie businesses explore and use artificial intelligence. What would you like AI to do for your business, Steve? And what's your industry and role?
Sure. Well, start with my industry. We work in market research. I'm a director at our company. We're called Fifth Quadrant. I lead on a lot of our AI implementations. What I'm really interested in here, Neve, is how AI can help with productivity, improve productivity in our company.
Thanks for sharing that, Steve. AI can definitely boost productivity in market research, especially with data analysis and automation. Let me just think about that for a moment. Are there specific tasks or challenges you'd like AI to help improve in your company?
Yeah, I'm thinking about data analysis. I'm thinking about how much we can automate much of that. I'm thinking about automation around report production and generating charts from survey data.
Got it, Steve. Thanks for clarifying, Steve. AI can automate data analysis, generate charts, and even draft reports from survey data, which could save your team loads of time. Would you want guidance on specific AI tools or the implementation process?
Yes, please, Neve. Could you email me something?
Sure thing, Steve. Could you please share your email address so I can send you the information?
Yes, it's snuttall@fifthquadrant.com.au.
Thanks, Steve. I'll send you some useful info on AI tools for data analysis and report automation shortly. Meanwhile, is there anything else about AI or the Small Business AI Advisory Service you'd like to explore?
No, you've been really helpful. Thanks so much, Neve.
It was great to talk with you today, Steve. I hope what I shared about the Small Business AI Advisory Service has been insightful. If you have any other questions or want to go deeper, reach out to Wilhelmina anytime. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Oh, my heart rate went a little bit up there. Just to
you did great. You did great. She did wonderful. She did wonderful.
That's really good, Steve. Any closing remarks? Otherwise, I'll go back to Corey to talk about some specific use cases.
If I can add to that, just because it's so practical and we're seeing that, we recently actually just got feedback for something very, very similar. So a livestock advisory business that participated in a Rockhampton session we had a couple of weeks ago actually went ahead after seeing a similar type of demonstration and built themselves a custom GPT trained on their past visit notes, whiteboard sketches that they often do, and their client emails. And it used to take them hours, and preparing before each site meeting, digging through inboxes, CRM notes, scribble notes, etc. Now to this custom GPT, they simply say, give me a summary of the last 3 visits to the Smith's property, it was called, and draft a follow-up email with key paddock rotation advice. And it takes several minutes now, as opposed to an hour or 2 a week. Ultimately, and what Steve's just shown, it lifts the quality of service. It certainly reduces mental load for a lot of people, and it helps with the scale without burning out. So great demo, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and we only spun that up as a demo a week ago. I fed it. Well, I didn't. My Called AI fed that with some information from NAIC, and obviously I demoed it up as a Small Business AI Advisory Service, not NAIC intentionally. But I think the point is, it was trained with data about what NAIC can do, and what the AI adopt centers do as well. So that kind of fed into the RAG that kind of customizes the agent as well. But it just demonstrates that within a relatively short space of time, you can get these things up and running pretty quickly.
Excellent. All right, Corey, would you like to share some use cases of what Hub's been doing with some manufacturers?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we do have, I'm going to put in the chat after I have this little conversation about what we're seeing as some of the typical use cases. I'll put in the chat access to Hub's YouTube channel, where there's the companies are actually videoed and talking about how they've experienced AI adoption and perhaps some additional tech adoption themselves. And so they're really good short videos to see firsthand what companies are achieving. We see, like, I'll give some examples where companies have sort of come out and publicly really talking about what they're doing. One has been a company called Microbio. Now, this company is a sepsis diagnostic company, and it's got a whole raft of new inventions, but the latest one is the sepsis one, and it detects up to 26 types of sepsis, and it's really going to be the world leader in sepsis diagnostics into hospitals into the future. And it's a company that's been around for a little while, but in the medical and biomedical space, it takes usually around 20 years for a company to properly commercialise, and they're kind of at that commercialising end. So they had a couple of things they needed to achieve. They had a lot of data in a lot of different places, like spaghetti of data. And they really needed to bring their data together, unify it, so that they could run clinical trials with teams across the world and have those teams be able to access the data in the clinical trials just using a user interface. So the first thing we did is we consolidated all their data for clinical trials. We consolidated that against their reporting data for their sepsis, and we consolidated and combined it with a kind of real-time data set that the hospital testings required. So they have really transformed their manufacturing process, allowing them to automate each part against a sepsis diagnostic. They now have world-class clinical trials data that they can report on at any time. But really importantly, not only does their technology by its own benefit reduce sepsis detection from what used to be a couple of days to 3 hours, so it literally is saving lives. It now integrates the data that it puts back into the hospital system. So, you know, that you've got the diagnostic, it goes to the doctor, but before it goes to the doctor, it also integrates that data with the patient data. So they get a whole view of that patient data at any one time. So this is really an incredible innovation, and it will be, you know, a very high profile commercialization when it happens. They're already into global markets with their CE approval, but they are now, you know, scaling. So they're all through Asia, Africa, and Europe. Ironically, Australia's FDA status is a harder one to get, but they will be in Australia very soon, and they're nearly completed their FDA. So this is a microbio company, and so the medical data is a really important space to be able to operate in and get access to data. So that is a real transformation of the sector and how it's using AI, not just microbio. Another kind of example that goes across a lot of our fabrication-based manufacturing companies. So they've got fabrication and assembly is really looking at how to do, you know, dynamic production workflows. You might have multiple sites where manufacturing is taking place and scheduling is taking place, and the skill sets and the material inputs and the staff time that need to be coordinated. One of our companies exists in 4 different continents. One of them, using the same sort of technology, just exists in southeast Queensland, but needs the same technology and is using it to great benefit, where they're going from production into assembly and install, and it's an incredibly complex workflow. And what's happening across these businesses is that doing this workflow assessment into the future by hand and can't change it. So, or can't change it easily. So if projects drop out, customers drop out, it takes a lot to assess if they can bring in new workflow changes to their operations. So we are, again, ingesting a lot of the data that these companies have and creating new tools for them once their data is unified and in one place to be able to assess if they can, their workflow and production. Now, this is like a logistics challenge. It's the same sort of challenge around logistics. AI is very good at these complex challenges around making decisions about timing and fit. You think about elevators as another example. What's the optimal elevator use? This is the same sort of technology that we're implementing. But first of all, we have to get that data in and ingested, and they're building those tools out now. You can do these tools without ingesting data into a modern data platform, but it becomes problematic over time. So what we want companies to do, and we're doing this across the board, is we want them in modern data platforms where they're having a sustainable solution. And we're often finding too, in case of these two companies, is that they're paying a lot of money because they've got antiquated data environment. They've got a blog storage over here. They've got 2 cloud environments. They've got some on-site, on-prem storage. They're paying for SQL kind of licenses. They're paying for different HubSpots or CRMs, ERP systems, really simplifying and streamlining that. That's the first cost benefit of really tackling the opportunity with data and AI in your business. So production workflows has stemmed from that. So back to this case. So one of the great advantages they're already seeing, both of these businesses, is that the question of, okay, I've got one more job opportunity. Does it fit in my production schedule? Can I fit it in? Do I have the staff with the right skills, the right materials? And if I say yes to this job, can I deliver it? So that's been a really great case study, and that's UAP is one of the companies, and we do have a bit of a video for them. And they talk about a few things that they've done with us, but also with AI. The other one they're working on is a baseline contract. So they're in the construction business. Contracts are incredibly big and complex. We are looking at their contracts to create a baseline contract situation where they go, this is the standard contract, and what we do is we flag any deviation in that contract to flag, that's unlikely to be the kind of scenario that's 10 days out or 20 days out, or a costing out, or a percentage out, or an insurance value out of what you'll normally accept. So basically that flags any issues with the contract for review, and it has, because those contracts were read by individuals every single time, so it was prone to error. And of course, a 60-day clause or a 90-day clause can be a lot of value when you're working with multiple contracts of high value. So contract kind of AI tools have been really key for the work we're doing with several companies. Some other ones are like, there's just so many. One I
think we're sort of running out of time here, okay, Corey, but
all right.
It'd be good to just say that that Hub provide a series of services to help organisations in this sector, explore how AI can help them in these sort of process and areas, right?
Yeah, so we do probably like what many do, and Ben included. We do a co-design workshop with companies, and we do a technical assessment so that you can look at the tools and the opportunities that are available to your organisation, and you can have them demoed, and you can also have a look at it in a sandpit environment.
Excellent, Corey. I'm just going to move over to you, Ben, and I think your edict is about regional AI adoption in specific sectors, but how do you think industries and peak bodies can support small medium enterprises in the AI adoption journey, and then potentially share with us a use case that's can be relevant across sectors, because this is a broad audience we've got here.
It is. And I was going to say, I don't know how many industry bodies are here, and I'll try and keep this short, just conscious of time, but regional SMEs don't really need more tech. They need relevant contextual support to make tech useful. So industry and peak bodies have a critical role to play as trusted enablers in that journey. And it probably takes two different motions for the industry bodies. For one, they probably have to translate AI into sector-specific language and problems. So many regional SMEs are overwhelmed by vague or generic AI messaging. So peak bodies do or can or should localize that narrative, showing how AI can be applied to their industry-specific value chain, be it seasonal planning, compliance logging, fleet scheduling, or even just gross margin management, and really provides sector-specific use cases like AI for variable rate spraying in horticulture, or contract drafting for fisheries. So you just need to think of AI not as a buzzword, but as a co-worker that speaks the industry dialect. But more importantly, we feel that they need to lead by example. So peak bodies themselves should really walk the talk and use AI internally for member engagement, for policy drafting, for event planning, and share those learnings quickly. Their members are often looking for advice based on that, and create AI-ready content and platforms. And we're working with a couple of key peak bodies at the moment to try and template and standardize some of these. So showing what's possible when structured and unstructured data is activated, effectively. And there are many use cases, and we've spoken across quite a few, but prototyping is important. So to provide context, this is a small beef supply chain. The staff often call or email managers with repeat questions about protocols, logistics, and more importantly, past decisions. So the prototype was a GPT, just trained on that internal documentation. So SOPs, audit records, HR policies, livestock protocols. And the workflow outcome is that staff query in plain English, what do we need for live export prep this week? Or where's our last audit checklist? And the GPT responds instantly with links and summaries and full text answers. And they build it in a way that it is consistently in the same format. And the impact really just reduces interruption to managers, and it shortens the onboarding of new staff we spoke of earlier, and just improves consistency.
Wonderful. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to see if there are some questions on the chat. And there was a couple of questions that I've got through. Interesting question. What do you think about the availability and affordability of AI fluency or literacy as a way of increasing AI adoption? How important is that to increasing AI adoption? Anybody want to comment on that?
Steve, I thought you were about to jump on.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'm kind of thinking that it should be all, a natural language interface. So in the sense that, the fact that we still need a level of AI kind of fluency, rather than this being something that's just something we interact with and is integrated into the way we run our business. I think that the fact that we need that fluency right now illustrates that there is a kind of communication challenge, because if you need to be literate in AI, that presents barriers. So I'm kind of interested about why you shouldn't need training in fluency to answer, if that kind of answers the question. I kind of think it's a problem.
Well, look, I think that is a really good perspective, because you mentioned it earlier, that it's a perceived barrier that you have to be an AI expert to be able to use solutions that are using AI, and so it's sort of like, is it important that you're an AI expert? I think it's more important that you have an understanding of the potential to, either improve how your business operates or improve, productivity, more understanding the business potential to your particular business versus I have to be an AI expert.
It's about experimenting. It's really about removing that or that misconception that you need to be an expert, and actually, whatever's on your mind or whatever came out of a team meeting, engage with a platform of choice to see what the response is like, and that might just trigger other questions, a different pathway, it's an engagement. So we often say this, you're onboarding a member onto your team. So, you don't just throw someone into a room, don't introduce the context of why they're in the room, who is in the room, and what they can add to the conversation. So the more you invest in the prompt, the dialogue that you have with these platforms, the more you'll get back. And you can test that based on your subject matter expertise. You don't have to be an AI expert. When someone walks into a meeting, even us 3, 4 on this panel, people can challenge that and go, well, that's logical, or that's not logical. Just because it's AI, it doesn't mean it's right. And then often it needs some guidance. And just the same way that when you onboard someone into the team, you may check with them 3 months in to ask how they're doing, what more information they require, and what feedback you've got for them. That's the same way you have to engage. Now, if you're going to build a custom space where you do need to maybe bring in a framework that augments your existing modern data platforms with your data science teams with an LLM, yes, you will need to bring in someone who has that professional services capability. That's fine. But you will be able to pick up on those and in handover start to work with it yourself in natural language. Don't be afraid. I think we've passed that point where people feel uncomfortable in front of a large language model. Just experiment, and you'll be surprised by the guidance that it provides.
Yeah, and look, we're talking about different levels of maturity and different sized businesses and capabilities, and so, but that misconception that you have to be an AI expert is definitely one that we want to demystify that. And getting started and doing it in a responsible way, making sure you're not sharing your sensitive data into an open platform is really important. There was another question, and I'm not sure with any of us are really the experts in this, but where do we see large CRM and ERP systems heading with the integration of AI?
I love it.
You love that question, do you? All right,
Yeah,
Corey.
Definitely.
I'm sure Ben does too. Look, I can really just speak on behalf of ArmHub. We have a really comprehensive CRM which we rely on for our business every day for a lot of the day. But we're getting rid of it. We are using AI as our CRM, and we believe that this is possible for almost any business. So I do see these kind of SaaS-based models that require licenses for use. Because, remember CRM and an ERP system to a lesser extent, but still applies, are broadly purchased software that have to make everybody happy. And by having to do that, they're inevitably not designed just for your business. And the opportunity that AI has now is to design one just for your business. So essentially, at the midpoint where we are, we can search all of our collected data, which would have historically been in the CRM system, and get access to that in the format we want, in the way we want, and have it to report in the way that we require a report. So we're not relying on kind of set reports from those systems. So I think you're going to see an entire revolution in CRMs and ERPs systems. They're either going to have to get rapidly smarter or cheaper, or both, to survive, or be able to have some sort of other value proposition before companies kind of realise that they can really make them on their own for their business purposes.
Fantastic. And I thought I was asking the wrong question. So that's
not at all.
So,
yeah. No, look, I've just built a lead management tool using Claude and Replit. We were just using an old-fashioned spreadsheet to manage all of our inbound inquiries and leads and so on. And it's, fairly, cumbersome. It sort of does the job. But I used Claude to write the spec. I ran it in Replit, and literally within an afternoon, for about $10 of platform fees, I had a really good interface. It was secure. Team members could log into it, upload the spreadsheet into the document, being able to run reports. I've now kind of taken it to where I can now have a AI chatbot built on the side of it, so we can then run questions about how we're tracking, etc. And for minimal cost, I'm kind of going, what? And I then know to kind of parallel that with a CRM platform, so that, but within, that's just using Replit, which incredibly easy to use, very powerful in terms of what it built, fraction of the cost of the platforms, Corey, that you were just mentioning.
Oh yeah, so you think about, even just think about us as a small organisation, probably 30,000 a year on our CRM. That's now not a cost, but that means, okay, all right, well, we could have $30,000 spent on building something that's distinct for us. And it's not going to be easy for everyone to do that, but I think anyone who's making decisions about those systems really should be having a conversation about where that's going and what AIs are affording you, and staging it even.
Yeah. My biggest worry is time. Sorry, Ben.
All right, I think, we're sort of running out of time here, and but this is great conversation. I didn't expect to get such a rich answer from that, but anyway, I think we can probably do some concluding remarks here. But thanks so much for the great conversation and the interesting insights. And just to everyone know, we'll be sending links to the Adopt Centres and to the tracker and everything in it. Thank you, email, but I think we've already shared it in the chat. I wanted to also just promote our okay, I can't. I'm trying to share. Anyway, I wanted to promote, we've got another webinar next week. It's actually called, it's about the University of Melbourne and KPMG AI Trust Report, and the link's going to be shared in this chat. The other thing that we're sort of super excited about is we've got our AI ecosystem directory live, which is a place for you to explore Australian AI solutions and services. So that is an excellent place to look for Australian-made solutions and service offerings. Other than that, I'd like to thank you all for joining, thank the presenters, and look forward to interacting with you all again in the future. Thank you.
Good luck out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.